Not like other strays, no desperate meows, no scratching at the door. Just stillness. As if she already knew I'd open it. It was late October, the kind of evening where the air smelled like wood smoke and wet leaves. The streetlights flickered on, one by one, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. I'd just gotten home from another double shift at the hospital, my shoulders heavy with exhaustion, my hands still faintly smelling of antiseptic. And there she was, a small, scruffy tortoiseshell cat, sitting perfectly upright on my porch step. Her fur was patchy in places, one ear slightly crumpled, like she'd seen a fight or two in her time. But her eyes, they were the kind of green that glowed, even in the dim light. I paused, keys still in hand. "Hey," I murmured, half expecting her to bolt. She didn't. Instead, she blinked up at me, slow, deliberate. A cat's version of a handshake. Then, without a sound, she stood, stretched, and padded toward me. Not begging, not even asking, just moving closer as if she'd already decided this was where she belonged. I should have shooed her away. I'd told myself, after Max died, that I wasn't ready for another pet. That the empty spot on the bed, the lack of paws clicking on hardwood in the morning, it was better this way. Less to lose. But something about the way she looked at me, like she already knew all of that, made me hesitate. I crouched down, holding out a hand. She sniffed it once, then butted her head against my fingers. A purr rumbled up from her chest, rough but insistent. And just like that, I was lost. "All right," I sighed, scratching behind her good ear. "You win." I left the door cracked open as I stepped inside, half expecting her to change her mind. But she followed without hesitation, slipping in like she'd been here 100 times before. That's when I noticed it. Clutched gently in her teeth, a single crumpled maple leaf, bright red at the edges. She set it carefully at my feet, then sat back, watching me. Waiting. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. It wasn't just any leaf, it was perfect. The kind you'd press between book pages to save. I didn't understand. Was this a gift? When I looked back at her, she was still staring. Those green eyes steady, unblinking. And for the first time in months, I felt something shift inside me. Something small. Something quiet. But something alive. She didn't sleep on the bed that first night. Not at first. I'd laid out an old towel near the radiator, half expecting her to vanish by morning. But when I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of rain tapping against the windows, she was there. Curled into a tight circle at the foot of the bed, her nose tucked under her tail. As if she'd crept up when she thought I wouldn't notice. I held my breath. Max used to do that, start the night on the floor, then inch his way up when he thought I was asleep. A slow, patient conquest. The ache hit me fresh, sharp as a splinter. I almost shooed her off. Almost. But then a tiny sigh escaped her, so soft it barely stirred the air. And something in me cracked open. I pulled the blanket over us both. By the third day, we had a routine. She'd wait by the door when my alarm went off, tail flicking as I shuffled to the coffee maker. She didn't beg for food, just watched, those green eyes tracking my every move. Like she was memorizing me. I learned her quirks fast. How she'd dip her paw into the water bowl before drinking, scattering droplets across the floor. How she'd freeze mid-step if she heard a bird outside, one paw suspended in the air. And the purring. God, the purring. It wasn't the smooth rumble of a content house cat. Hers was uneven, stuttery, like an engine that hadn't been turned on in years. It shook her whole bony frame when she really got going. I found myself talking to her. Not the baby talk I'd used with Max, but quiet murmurs as I washed dishes or sorted laundry. "You like that radiator, huh?" A slow blink in response. "Yeah, me too." The first time she touched me on purpose, I nearly cried. I was sitting on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, an unopened beer sweating in my hand. Another long shift. Another night alone. She leapt up beside me, clumsy, one back leg dragging slightly, and headbutted my elbow. Ow, what the... Then she did it again. Insistent. When I didn't move, she climbed right into my lap, all elbows and determination. She kneaded my thigh with her front paws, claws catching in my sweatpants. Okay, I set the beer down. She settled then, a warm weight against my stomach. Her purr kicked up, that broken motor sound. One paw stretched out, just barely brushing my wrist. I don't know how long we sat there. But when I finally looked down, my fingers were buried in her fur, scratching behind her ears like I'd done it 1,000 times before. Like I still remembered how. Then came the staring. Not at me, at the hallway closet. The one I hadn't opened in 8 months. She'd sit perfectly still for 20, 30 minutes at a time, gaze locked on the door. Ears pricked forward, tail twitching. At first, I thought she heard mice in the walls. But when I knelt beside her, pressing my ear to the wood, nothing. Just silence. "What's in there, huh?" I murmured. She turned her head, fixing me with those luminous eyes. For a wild second, I swore she knew. Then she stood, stretched, and sauntered away, leaving me alone with the closet. With his things. The nightmares started that week. Not mine. Hers. I'd wake to the sound of her paws skidding against the hardwood, her tiny body jerking in her sleep. Sometimes she'd yowl, a sound so raw it raised the hair on my arms. I'd scoop her up, whispering nonsense into her fur. "Shoo, you're okay. You're safe." Her heartbeat would hammer against my palms, rapid as a hummingbird's. Slowly she'd still. Then she'd lick my thumb once, quick and embarrassed, before squirming away. We never spoke about it in the morning, but I started leaving the bathroom light on at night. Just a crack. Just enough to push back the dark. Then, one rainy Tuesday, she brought me another gift. I was tying my scrubs when I heard the familiar thump at the bedroom door. There she stood, something small and white clutched in her jaws. My stomach dropped. What did you owe? Not a dead mouse. A Polaroid. The Polaroid. The one from the clinic picnic, the edges curled from humidity. Max grinning with a hot dog in one hand, me mid-laugh beside him. It had been missing for months. She dropped it carefully at my feet, then sat back, watching. Waiting. My hands shook as I picked it up. "Where did you?" But of course she didn't answer. Just blinked up at me, her tail curling around her paws. That's when I noticed the closet door was open. Just an inch. Just enough. I realized it when I finally turned the knob. The scent hit me first. That unmistakable blend of cedar and old wool, still clinging to Max's winter coat after all this time. The hanger was empty. I stared at the bare hook, my fingers brushing the space where heavy fabric should have been. My throat tightened. That coat had still smelled like him, like coffee and the lemon candies he always carried in the pockets. A soft thud came from behind me. The cat sat in the hallway, the oversized sleeve of Max's coat dragging beneath her. She'd somehow wrestled it off the lower shelf, her chest heaving with the effort. "Hey, no." I lunged forward, but she darted away, the coat scraping across the hardwood. For a frail thing, she was stubborn. We played a ridiculous game of tug-of-war, me pulling gently at the fabric, her growling around the cuff like a terrier with a rat. Finally, she released it with an indignant guff and sat back, licking her paw as if she'd meant to let go all along. I gathered the coat to my chest, and that's when I felt it. Something solid in the left pocket. The pill bottle rattled before I even pulled it out. Orange plastic, half crushed from months of bearing weight. The label had faded, but I didn't need to read it to know what it was. The emergency supply from Max's last week, when the pain got too bad to pretend anymore. I'd searched for this. God, I'd searched. After he was gone, when the hospice nurse asked if any meds needed disposing, I turned the house inside out. I'd convinced myself I'd thrown it away in some sleep-deprived haze. But here it was. Hidden in the pocket of the coat he'd stopped wearing when he could no longer stand the weight of it. The cat chirped, nudging my knee with her head. "Did you know this was here?" My voice sounded alien to my own ears. She blinked up at me, then trotted to the closet, pawing at a loose floorboard near the back, one I'd never noticed. The board came up easier than it should have, like it had been lifted before. Recently. Underneath lay a shoebox I didn't recognize. The kind you get when buying children's sneakers, decorated with cartoon rockets. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside, a dried corsage from our friend's wedding, petals brittle as insect wings. 3 ticket stubs from the indie theater where we'd had our first date. A postcard from the Smoky Mountains, where we'd gotten caught in a thunderstorm and laughed until our sides ached. And at the very bottom, a ring. Not fancy, just a simple silver band, tucked inside a tiny velvet pouch. I remembered this. Not the hiding place, but the day. "It's not an engagement ring," Max had said, pressing it into my palm 2 months before the diagnosis. "It's a placeholder. Until I find the perfect one." I'd worn it on a chain under my scrubs until the day he slipped into unconsciousness. Then I'd taken it off. Couldn't bear the weight. Must have tucked it away without thinking. The cat sneezed. When I looked up, she was sitting with her back to me, staring at the wall where Max's old hiking boots used to line up. Her tail flicked once. Twice. Then she turned and headbutted the pill bottle still sitting on the floor. It rolled toward me with a hollow sound. I didn't sleep that night. Sat at the kitchen table instead, turning the ring over in my fingers while the cat watched from her perch on the fridge. When had she started climbing there? The morphine bottle sat between us like an uninvited guest. I should have flushed them. That's what you're supposed to do. But there had been nights, early on, when the grief was a living thing chewing through my ribs, where I'd thought about it. Just swallowing the whole bottle and letting the world go soft at the edges. I'd never told anyone that. The cat leapt down, landing with surprising grace for a 3-legged creature. Had she always limped? Or was I just noticing now? She butted her head against my shin, then stretched up to pat my knee with one paw. Clink. Her claws tapped the ring in my hand. When I didn't react, she did it again. Harder. "Oh, what?" She stared at me, unblinking, then deliberately knocked the morphine bottle onto its side. It rolled in a lazy half-circle before stopping against my shoe. A chill ran through me. It felt like a choice. The pharmacy opened at 8. I was there at 7:58, the bottle burning a hole in my jacket pocket. The cat had followed me to the door that morning, her green eyes tracking my every move. The tech recognized me. "Oh hey, Dr. Chin. Need your disposal." I set the morphine on the counter. "Please." She didn't ask why I had it. Just nodded and dropped it into the hazardous waste bin with a final sounding thunk. When I got home, the cat was waiting on the porch step, just like that first night. She trilled when she saw me, trotting forward to weave between my legs. Then she led me inside, straight to the closet. The shoebox was back under the floorboard, but sitting on top of it was the ring, on its chain, like it was waiting. The chain left a green mark on my skin after the first week. I hadn't meant to start wearing it again. Just tried it on one groggy morning while brewing coffee, a half-awake impulse. The cat watched from the kitchen table as the silver settled against my sternum, her tail twitching like a metronome. By noon, I'd forgotten it was there. By day 3, I caught myself rubbing the ring between my fingers during difficult consults, the metal warm from my skin. On day 7, the cat brought me Max's favorite scarf. She'd started a collection. Not of random objects, specific ones. Always his. Always things I hadn't been able to part with but couldn't bear to see. His reading glasses, one temple arm bent from being tucked behind his ear too often. The ridiculous neon green socks he'd worn for every surgery, for good luck, he claimed, though I knew it was just to make the intern smile. A single leather glove, just the left one, that I found neatly placed on my pillow one evening. Each item appeared with deliberate timing. The glasses showed up after a brutal night shift where I'd lost a patient. The socks surfaced the morning of my first solo procedure since Max's death. The cat never took credit. She'd just sit nearby, cleaning a paw with exaggerated innocence, as if to say, no idea how that got there. But her ears would tilt forward just slightly when I picked the items up. Watching. Waiting. Then came the night of the storm. Thunder shook the house like it wanted in. Rain lashed the windows hard enough that I kept checking for cracks. The power flickered twice before dying completely, plunging us into darkness save for the occasional lightning flash. The cat, usually unfazed by noise, lost her mind. She tore through the house like something was chasing her, clattering into furniture, knocking over a lamp. When I finally caught her in the hallway, her body vibrated under my hands, her pupils blown wide. "It's just weather," I murmured, stroking her spine. "You're safe." She wrenched free and bolted to the closet. Not inside it, at it, scrabbling at the door like she could dig through the wood. Her claws left pale marks in the paint. Lightning flashed. In that split second of illumination, I saw it. The way her entire body locked rigid. The way her remaining back toes splayed like she was bracing for impact. And the missing digit on her right hind paw, not an old injury, I realized with dawning horror. A clean amputation. Surgical. Just like Max's. The pieces came together too fast. The limp that worsened in cold weather. The way she never jumped down from high places, always climbed carefully, favoring one side. The single glove. His glove. The right one, which he'd worn even in summer after the neuropathy started. To hide the missing finger. I sank to the floor, the storm forgotten. The cat, this scruffy, half-feral creature, pressed her forehead against my knee. Her breathing hitched in that way I'd come to recognize as her holding back a purr. Not for her comfort. For mine. "You knew him," I whispered. She blinked up at me, water gathering in the corners of her eyes. Or maybe that was just the rain dripping from the ceiling. Later, I'd find a leak over the closet. The shelter records were a dead end. No chip, no collar when she came in, the volunteer said, scrolling through their system. Just showed up one night in a donation box with her kittens. All adopted out except her. Nobody wants an older tripod with a heart murmur. I nearly dropped the phone. Max had a heart murmur. Where was the donation box from? Papers rustled. Looks like a hospice center over on Elm? They sometimes leave linens for us. The room tilted. Bright Horizons Hospice, where I'd spent every night for those last 3 weeks. Where I'd sobbed into Max's hospital gown until an orderly gently pried me away. Where, according to the records, this cat had given birth in a storage closet 2 days after Max died. I found her in the garden that evening. The community plot he'd tended even when he needed a cane to walk the rows. It had gone to weeds since November, but now someone had cleared the crabgrass, turned the soil, and planted sunflowers. Max's favorite. The cat sat between the seedlings, her tail curled neatly around her paws. Dirt caked her claws. When she saw me, she didn't meow, just tilted her head the way Max used to when I was being particularly dense about something. The chain around my neck felt suddenly heavy. I knelt in the freshly turned earth, not caring that mud seeped through my scrubs. The cat waddled over and deposited something in my lap. A single sunflower seed, still in its striped shell. Then she sneezed. And just like that, the spell broke. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a year. The sound startled us both. She headbutted my shins so hard I almost toppled over. And just like that, I was home. Life didn't magically mend. The garden didn't bloom overnight. The grief didn't vanish. Some mornings I still reached for Max's side of the bed, only to find cold sheets. But now, there was a warm weight on my feet. And the silence. It wasn't empty anymore. We fell into new rhythms. Mornings started earlier. She'd wake me with a single, precise paw to the cheek. No claws, just firm insistence. Exactly at 5:15 a.m. Max's old running time. I didn't run. Not yet. But we'd go to the garden. Me and Max's oversized flannel. Her trotting ahead, sniffing at dew-heavy spiderwebs stretched between tomato cages. I'd kneel in the dirt, turning soil with hands that still felt more at home with a scalpel than a trowel. She'd watch from the sun-warmed path. When I closed, as if supervising, then she'd hobble over and drop a pebble in my palm, or a beetle, or once, a perfect, tiny snail shell. "Thanks," I'd murmur, tucking it in my pocket. It felt like prayer. The closet stayed open. Not wide. Just a crack. Enough for light to catch the edges of shoeboxes. Enough for her to slip in and out. When she needed something. She never took anything else of Max's. Not after the glove. She started bringing me things. A smooth river stone after a hard shift. A lost earring I'd given up finding. Feather. Blue jay. Startlingly bright. Left on my pillow. Gifts that asked for nothing. Gifts that simply said, "I see you." Wednesdays were different. Every week, like clockwork, she'd vanish. Not far. Not with me. She wouldn't follow me to the kitchen. Wouldn't curl on the couch while I read. Wouldn't even acknowledge the garden. She'd retreat to the hallway and sit, staring at the bedroom door. Not the closet anymore. The bedroom. If I tried to pick her up, a low growl vibrated in her throat. The only time she ever sounded truly feral. So I learned. Wednesdays, I let her be. I'd leave her dinner bowl by the door. Thomas. I'd sit on the floor nearby, my back against the wall. Not touching. Not speaking. Breathing the same heavy air. I didn't know what she remembered. What ghosts lived in that room on Wednesdays. Max died on a Wednesday. At 3:17 p.m. I'd been holding his left hand. The one missing the finger. One Wednesday, I broke the rule. It had been a brutal day at the hospital. A child coding in the ER. The smell of antiseptic and fear clinging to my skin. I came home hollow. She was there, as always, a small sentinel facing the dark bedroom. I didn't think, just sank down beside her and rested my head against the doorframe. A shudder ran through her. So slowly, she turned, walked the 2 steps to me, and pressed her entire body along my side, from shoulder to hip, a solid stripe of warmth. Her purr started, that broken, rattling sound, filling the hallway. We sat like that for an hour, maybe more. The bedroom door stayed shut, but something else opened. I started making coffee for 2, just out of habit at first, filling Max's chipped world's okayest surgeon mug, setting it beside mine on the counter. The cat watched, head tilted. One morning, she hopped onto the counter, a rare act of defiance, and nudged the mug with her nose, not to knock it over, but pushing it toward the edge, toward the sink. You think I should stop? My voice cracked. She blinked, slow, deliberate, then jumped down and padded to the garden door. Let's go. I poured the cold coffee down the drain, washed the mug, dried it, and placed it upside down on the highest shelf. Felt like a goodbye, a real one. She stopped bringing me gifts. She started sharing her treasures. I'd find her favorite pebble in my shoe, her prized feather tucked into my stethoscope case, her half-chewed catnip mouse, placed solemnly on Max's old reading chair. Is this for me? Holding up the soggy toy, she just purr louder and stretch out in a patch of sun. Obviously, the garden grew. Sunflowers stretched taller than me, their heavy heads following the light. Tomatoes swelled green then red. Zinnias exploded in fireworks of color. Patients started noticing the dirt under my nails. Gardening, Dr. Chin? Yeah, I'd say. Smiling felt less like tearing a wound open now. Got some help. I'd show them pictures. Not of Max. Not yet. Of her. Sitting regally among the sunflowers. One ear crumpled. Eyes like cut jade. She's beautiful, they'd say. Yeah. My thumb would brush the ring under my scrubs. She knows it too. The Wednesday vigil changed in September. The air turned crisp, smelling of wood smoke and overripe apples. Sunflowers bowed heavy-headed, their faces browned at the edges. She still sat by the bedroom door, but closer now. Sometimes just a foot away from the threshold. Her gaze less fixed, more contemplative. One afternoon, as golden light slanted through the hallway window, I found her not sitting, but standing. Nose pressed to the gap under the door. Tail held perfectly still. I held my breath. Slowly, deliberately. She lifted a paw. Tapped the wood. Silence. A soft click. The door, never fully latched, swung inward, just wide enough for a small tortoiseshell cat to slip through. She vanished into the dim room. I didn't follow. Some journeys aren't yours to witness. She was different when she emerged an hour later. Lighter. Her fur fluffed, her step almost springy despite the limp. She trotted straight to me where I sat on the floor, head but my knee, then dropped something at my feet. Not a leaf, not a stone. A single, dried sunflower petal, crisp as old paper, sunset orange. She chirped, a sound I'd never heard before, bright, inquisitive, and walked into the living room, curled up in a patch of sun on Max's chair, and slept. The bedroom door remained open. The garden became her final project. As autumn painted the maples fiery red, she became obsessed with the sunflower heads. No longer content to supervise, she helped. She'd patrol the rows as I harvested seeds, sniffing each giant, drooping face. When she found one she deemed worthy, she'd tap it with her paw. A soft thump-thump. This one, I'd ask. A slow blink. Obviously. I'd carefully cut the chosen head. Its seeds plump and striped like tiny prisoners. She'd watch as I rubbed the seeds free into a paper bag, her nose twitching at the dusty, earthy scent. One chilly October morning, I found her sitting beside the bag I'd left on the porch, not trying to get in, but guarding it, her green eyes fixed on the frosted lawn. When I picked it up, something shifted inside, something heavier than seeds. Beneath the rustling black and white seeds lay a small oilcloth pouch, tied with a frayed blue ribbon, the kind Max used to tie around medical charts. My hands froze. The cat nudged my ankle, her purr rumbling like distant thunder. Open it. Inside the pouch, a smooth, river-worn stone. Hers. The tiny blue jay feather. Hers. A single, bent paperclip. Max's, he always twisted them into little sculptures during long calls. And a folded square of paper. The handwriting stopped my heart. Max's. Not the shaky scrawl from his final days. This was bold, looping of, dated 8 months before his diagnosis. Found this perfect stone by the river today. Made me think of you, solid, beautiful, kinda stubborn. Planted those sunflower seeds too. Hope they grow taller than my ego. P.S. Stop working so hard. Eat the damn cupcake. He must have tucked it into one of my gardening books. I'd never seen it. The cat pressed her cold nose against my wrist. Her eyes held no surprise. Quiet satisfaction. She'd known. Of course she'd known. The first frost came hard. Silvered the grass. Crusted the last zinnias. She moved slower now. Slept longer in the patch of sun that crossed Max's chair. Felt deeper, but fainter. I brought her bed closer to the radiator. Started warming her food. Found myself waking in the night, just to lay a hand on her side. Feeling the steady, if slightly erratic, beat of her tired heart. One afternoon, she didn't meet me at the garden gate. I found her in the sunflower patch, not among the towering, seed-heavy stalks, but curled in the very center of a small, cleared circle. A circle I hadn't made. She dug it herself. Soft, dark earth exposed. And in the center of that circle, she'd placed the oilcloth pouch. Her head lifted as I approached. Her eyes, still that impossible green, held mine. No headbutt, no chirp, just a look so deep, so knowing. It stole my breath. It's time. I knelt in the cold earth beside her. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. Opened my arms. She didn't hesitate. Climbed into my lap, settling her fragile weight against my chest. Her head tucked under my chin. A fragile vibration against my heart. We sat like that, as the late afternoon sun gilded the dead sunflower heads. As the wind whispered through the dry stalks. As the world held its breath. Her breathing slowed, deepened. The purr softened, then faded into a sigh. A sigh that seemed to say, "Thank you. It's enough. Let go." I held her until the sun dipped below the trees. Until her small body grew cool. Until the first star pricked the violet sky. I placed the oilcloth pouch into the earth she'd prepared, covered it, and over it, I planted a single sunflower seed. From the bag she'd guarded, her final gift was a beginning. Winter didn't feel empty. Snow piled high against the garden fence, bearing the circle of earth. Where she slept, where the seed slept. I'd stand at the kitchen window each morning, steam from my coffee fogging the glass, and watch the blanketed stillness. No small tracks punctuated the white expanse. No green eyes blinked from Max's chair. But the silence, it wasn't hollow. It was the quiet of deep roots, holding their breath, waiting. The grief changed shape. It wasn't a knife in the ribs anymore. The ache of a muscle stretched further than it thought it could go, stronger for the tearing. I opened the bedroom door all the way, let the weak winter sun wash over Max's side of the bed. I didn't sleep there, not yet, but I'd sit on the edge sometimes, running my fingers over the quilt she'd kneaded soft, the ring warm against my skin. One February dusk, I found the half-chewed catnip mouse, tucked beneath my pillow, still faintly smelling of earth and clover. I held it to my face, and laughed until tears tracked cold down my cheeks. You stubborn, wonderful ghost. Spring arrived on tiptoe. First, a softening in the air. Then the drip, drip, drip of melting snow. The smell of wet earth, raw and hopeful. I avoided the garden. Couldn't bear the thought of seeing that bare circle. Until one rain-heavy morning, a flash of impossible green caught my eye. Not a leaf, not a stem. Her collar, the simple blue one I'd bought her, then never put on. She's wild, I told myself. She wouldn't like it. It hung from the garden gate latch, swaying gently in the damp breeze, like a flag, claiming territory. Yours. Ours. The sunflower broke ground in April. A single brave shoot, emerging, not in the center of the circle, but right at the edge, as if stretching towards the house. I knelt beside it, the cool mud seeping into my knees. My fingers hovered, not touching, but bearing witness. It grew fast, thick stem, broad leaves drinking the strengthening sun. I didn't fence it, didn't fuss. It seemed to thrive on being left alone, to reach. The video started by accident. A resident saw a picture of the sunflower, now taller than me. It's single bud heavy and promising. You should document it, Dr. Chin, she said. For the hospice therapy garden project? Shows how life finds a way. So I pointed my phone at the stalk one evening, pressed record, cleared my throat. Day 87. It's raining, but it seems happy. I posted it without thinking. Tagged #hospicegarden. The next morning, 37 views. 2 comments. Gorgeous. Needs more sun, friend? I smiled. Posted another. The bloom opened on a Wednesday. Golden. 1,000 tiny florets spiraling towards the light. It faced the kitchen window, like a beacon. I filmed it. The camera wobbled. My voice was thick. She planted this. The cat. She chose the seed. Dug the earth. I paused. Swallowed. She knew we needed something to look up to. I uploaded it. Titled it simply, Her Sunflower. People found it. First, trickle. Gardening folks. Cat lovers. People who understood the quiet language of grief. Comments poured in. My rescue tabby brings me rocks too. Soul cats are real. Lost my husband last year. This made me plant zinnias. That sunflower is her smile, isn't it? The message. From Bright Horizons Hospice. The administrator. Dr. Chin? That tortoiseshell, we called her Wednesday. She appeared the week we lost a wonderful patient, Max. She birthed her kittens in his old linens closet. We'd hear her purring in there sometimes, like she was comforting someone. We're so glad she found you. She brought him peace, and it seems he sent her to bring you back. I read it under the sunflower's wide, benevolent face, its shadow long and cool on the grass. Of course, the channel grew. Dr. Chen's healing patch. Not just sunflowers now. Zinnias like Max loved. Tomatoes. Basil that smelled like summer. I filmed the ordinary miracles. A bee heavy with pollen. Raindrops trembling on a leaf. The first blush on a green tomato. The sunflower. Her sunflower. I'd point the camera low sometimes. At a smooth stone placed near the stem. At a blue jay feather tucked into the garden fence. At the empty spot on the porch step, where a small, scruffy cat once waited. The comments understood. She's still gifting you. The stone today made me cry. In a good way. This garden is a love letter. The ring stays warm against my skin. A reminder, not of loss, but of love's stubborn endurance. Max sent me a guardian with crumpled ears and a heart that purred like a broken engine until it mended mine. She taught me, grief isn't a room you leave. It's a garden you tend. You plant seeds in the dark earth. Something will reach for the light. It's a sunflower. It's the courage to open a door. It's the sound of your own voice saying, it grew. So, we keep planting. We keep reaching. Because love doesn't end. It changes shape. It becomes a sunflower, a shared memory, a quiet purr in the dark. It becomes the next seed. Thank you for growing with us. This patch of earth, this story, meant something to you. Smash that like button, share it with someone who needs a sunflower today. Subscribe for more quiet miracles every day. Because sometimes, healing is just a click away. Ring the bell so you never miss a moment. And remember, no matter how long the winter, the seed remembers the sun. Keep looking up.